stuff going on. That's pretty crazy. Anyway, and you're going to hear a lot more from our next speaker. I'm not sure how to introduce him. Well, some of you may know him as the Orange Man. I don't know. I refer to him maybe as sometimes Algo Jesus, but that's just me. But all of us know him as John Woods, so please give it up for John.
How are things? Algo fucking Jesus. Oh my God. All right. No pressure. It's great to be here. The last time I spoke at Decipher was nearly 2 years ago, and we have come a long way. So today, I'm going to walk you through some bits and pieces that we've been doing. Going to look at our 2024 roadmap. Going to talk about what's done so far and what we've got left to do. Going to look at AlgoKit 3 and some of the killer features we're bringing for developers, not only to make your lives easier, but also to attract new folks into the ecosystem. Then we're going to look at our research and development team and the kind of things that they've been doing, and there's some very exciting products we got there. They've been working with companies on integrations and got some cool announcements. And then finally, I'll talk about 2025 and what our focus will be for that. Cool. All right. You know, Stacy had a bunch of cool metrics. I think the one that stood out to me the most when Simon helped us put it together was that the number of unique applications is exponentially more than it was only a year ago. What's interesting about that is, of course, it's easy to programmatically deploy a whole bunch of apps, but having unique apps, it shows real diversity, right? It shows that people are doing different things, and having 16,000 of them on the chain is something I'm quite proud of. I'm hoping that the work we've done around the developer tools is really the catalyst around that. These are some, I think, other interesting metrics that we pulled. You know, the first billion transactions took 4 years. The next billion took 1 more year. And so that is quite incredible. We're seeing, in terms of assets created, so, you know, ASAs minted on the chain, a 76% growth year over year. And then finally, this is incredible stuff. There was 43 million transactions on a single day in 2024. That's essentially an average of 600 transactions a second for the entire day. And so, ghost chain, stick that up your ass. Okay. Okay. Just a shout out on the 2024 roadmap. Alexa and our crack marketing team did a great job. I haven't, yeah. I haven't memorized all the chess names, so I'm not going to refer back to them by their pseudonyms. Okay, so what have we done so far in 2024? We hit dynamic lambda, and so that's now down under 3 seconds. The block time's under 3 seconds. We've been conservative with that, and so we feel like we can tweak it a lot further. We could probably get it down under 2 seconds if we wanted to, but we want to make these changes in a conservative fashion. And as you're aware, I'll speak to in a few minutes, we have a bunch of things that are coming up that are going to change the way the network ebbs and flows, so we don't want to make too much of an aggressive change on dynamic lambda before we make the changes around consensus and peer-to-peer. We have the non-archival relays. You know, a year and a half ago, it cost about $4 million a year to run the relay program for the network. Relays that, you know, won't actually be required when we move to peer-to-peer. Now, today, thanks to non-archival relays, which are much more efficient, and other enhancements, the relay program is just over $1 million to run. So it's a 75% reduction in terms of costs at the foundation for those relays. And then I was really proud, of course, with the work that Ali, Sandro, and our partners at MakerX achieved when we rolled out AlgoKit 2.0. I remember at the first Decipher talking about AlgoKit, and the things I said were, we're going to give you, you know, a command line tool to help you build, test, and deploy, like Truffle. And we've come such a long way. You know, Python has really redefined the developer user experience. There's nothing wrong with Teal, but it's an assembly-like language. There's also languages like Tealish, created by Tinyman, right? Fergal at Tinyman. These are great things. But ultimately, although they give you a lot of control, they're not easy for newcomers. By bringing semantically and syntactically regular Python to the chain, we really lower the barriers to entry. We reduce the go-to-market costs for startups. And of course, we reduce the maintenance costs, because you don't need to hire exotic language developers to maintain your product. Oh, you know, one other thing. One product that I've seen come out that was possible with Python that just wouldn't have been possible with Teal in any kind of practical way is AlgoPlonk. And so Julio, who's a member of the community, created this thing AlgoPlonk. It lets you express ZK circuits inside a contract in an efficient way. And so you can actually write up a zero-knowledge system inside an Algorand smart contract. And the way it works is that you define the circuit, and then his tool spits out the Teal that you need to compile into the contract. But for him to express the complexity of those zero-knowledge gates, the circuit, it was just not possible without using a higher-level language like Python. So a great example of where we now have something very important that can enhance privacy and do other things that are very cool that wouldn't have been possible before the advent of a simple language like this. OK, so what's up next? I think everyone's aware consensus incentives are coming. We had a vote on the floor, so you need 30,000 algo to be a solo operator. But we're also working with our friends, Patrick Bennett back there from NFD, who've produced an incredible product which will allow you to do peer-to-peer pools, right? So if you haven't got the 30,000 algo, but of course you still want to get involved to earn rewards and support the network, which we need you to do, you can pool together in a decentralized, trustless way with open source contracts, and we're going to have that ready when consensus incentives are ready. We're still aiming to get this out this year, but the Inc. are working hard on it, and we want to make sure that it's robust. One other thing, I know people will say, you know, running a node is not that easy. Our new website launched today, by the way. It's very pretty. Alexa and team, very well done. Yeah. And we're now much more in touch with the community, right? So we have Pixel node there, we have Aus one-click node there, but we're also going to have a kind of a canonical terminal user interface that you can use to start up your node, shut down your node, check the status of your node, and in a very cool way, present a QR code that you can scan on Para or DFly, whatever wallet you want to use, to issue your participation keys. So we're going to make it easier because we want people to be involved. Thank you. And then finally, peer-to-peer. You know, peer-to-peer is a thing that Silvio has said to me, do we really need it? I think the answer is no. The network works great with relays. But like Stacy said in her keynote, we want to eliminate the excuses and the criticisms. And I think it's important that we do have a fallback. And so you don't require these relays anymore once we roll out peer-to-peer. Your data will flow through the network. Of course, as things maximally decentralize, they don't stay as fast, okay? So using peer-to-peer may not be a 2-second block time, might be a 4-second block time. But ultimately, it will be there, and you can use that, and they will complement each other. And of course, we want to roll out the peer-to-peer change after we see this increase in the number of consensus nodes, right? Because when we incentivize consensus, we're going to see a whole slew of new nodes pop up. That's going to change the topology and how many pathways there are between these nodes. And so it makes sense to do this after we roll out consensus incentives. All right, so, you know, a year ago, we didn't have an engineering team at the foundation whatsoever. And so I think it's become really important to have some engineering prowess so we can deliver on things, whether it's the terminal user interface for consensus incentives or just maintaining our own software internally so that we don't have to pay external vendors a lot of money to do things like the randomness beacon or other useful tools. And so I hired Bruno from Cardano, where I also used to work, and he's built a killer engineering team. And as you know, I've sucked up the community, hired Kyle, I hired Silent Rhetoric. We've hired another great individual who's going to be joining the team very soon. So we've got, I think, a really wonderful team. On their own, without any kind of requirements set or you know, me or others driving the product requirements, the team have come up with some great things, and I want to share some of them today with you. OK, so first up is Liquido. This is a really important thing. We're going to have a really aggressive press release around this, and Bruno and Alessandro are going to come up on stage in a short while and demo it live. This thing is super important. Right now, we go to all this effort to build these decentralized applications. But the communications between your Para wallet or your wallet on your phone and the front end that's hosted by the provider, like the Folks Finance front end, that communication is usually over Wallet Connect. Okay? Wallet Connect is a centralized entity that has to allow list or whitelist you to use it. It's unacceptable that we go to all of this effort to keep these things decentralized, and then at the last minute, we use a centralized broker for that communication when you're actually preparing the transaction to interact with the chain. Yeah, boo. So, bye-bye fucking Wallet Connect, you're gone. we're moving to use Liquido, and Liquido will provide all the primitives you need to do peer-to-peer discovery and peer-to-peer routing of your data from your wallet to the dApp's front end. And this is really, really important. It's also, though, using all of the regular Web 2 primitives, right? We're using FIDO2, we're using WebAuth, we're using passkeys. And so you'll be able to use your Algorand wallet to sign into websites like GitHub using passkeys, and we're going to demo that later today. Wallets become a lifestyle app now, and they're centered around you. It's going to be a seismic change in how you interact with things, and I think that Liquido not only works, of course, with Algorand, but it also works with other ecosystems like Ethereum and Cardano. So we're very excited to remove this last point of centralization from the entire industry. Thank you. In my practice speech, I went too low on the old XD, HD wallet stuff. So just to say, right now, 25 words. It's not a BIP39 or BIP44 standard. It means we don't have as much compatibility across wallets. It means when users come from MetaMask, they're like, they got this extra word, they're using different types of keys. And also critically, have you ever noticed when you're in Para Wallet or any wallet on Algorand, including Goal, you can create an account, but unlike your Ledger app, you can't derive, you know, a new address for a one-time receive the way you can in Ledger. Well, Bruno and the team have built an implementation of BIP44 for Algorand, which allows one seed, one 24-word seed, and unlimited, practically unlimited addresses to be derived from it. It increases privacy because you can use it for one-time payments. And wonderfully, they've done this with Chris Picart, who is a world-leading cryptographer who implemented state proofs for us. And Chris has done it with the team in a way that you can use your Algorand wallets or your private keys to do encrypted communications. So what that means is that the implementation respects the nuances of the Curve 25519 cofactor, and so you'll now see entirely new cases for your Algorand wallet, not just for storing funds and making payments, but also for maybe peer-to-peer communications over the chain in an encrypted fashion. Cool. And then finally, on R&D out of the shop is privacy. So we're looking at a number of different primitives that we think are important to bring privacy to Algorand. I know this is something Silvio talked about in terms of smart contracts, but we're going to focus on payments first. And so the types of things we're exploring, cryptographic transactions, ring signatures, zero-knowledge proofs using things like Plonk, and of course, some of you will have noticed, we added pairing-based curve support to the AVM, so you can do equivalence checks on BLS 12381 and BN 254, and so this adds a layer of homomorphic additivity, and you can do some cool privacy things. We think privacy is important, and we're going to be focused on it. All right, one other thing. Para is going to get MasterCard support. You're going to be able to... Yeah. I'm super proud of this one. Immersive is a small but very successful startup that issues regular MasterCards that work everywhere MasterCard works. They're working with Ethereum. And I met, I think, their co-founder, I think it was at a side event, and we talked about bringing immersive support or MasterCard support into the Algorand ecosystem. One of the things I noticed, sorry, I think my audio's going, yeah, cool. One of the things I noticed very quickly talking to them was that they only settle once a day on Ethereum because it costs too much money to settle. So when someone taps the card, they don't seize the crypto on their side to actually pay for that transaction. They essentially provide a little bit of a loan service. That introduces risk. If the user was to simultaneously try to spend that money, they wouldn't be able to claim the crypto later. When I explained to the team that it was possible to have instant finality at near zero cost so that they could not have that translation risk, not have that time risk, but immediately settle the crypto leg of the journey whilst the user paid for something, they were all over it. Of course, they didn't have experience building with Algorand, and so that's where our R&D and DevRel team came in and gave them the lift and love that they needed to bring MasterCard support to Para. It's in testnet right now. We're going to have an amazing press release at the end of the week, but it's big news. Thank you. And I should add that Yeet will talk about this further in his keynote, Yeet, the CTO at Para. Okay, AlgoKit 3. I'm really proud of how far we've come. In AlgoKit 2, we brought Python support, but we're not done with it yet. We're going to be bringing support for tuples, dynamic and efficient arrays, and other primitives that are going to make development really, really easy using Python. So we're going to enhance this further. But this year, we're also going to bring support for TypeScript. Now, some of you are already using Joe Ponley's wonderful Teal script. We're taking, of course, massive inspiration from that. We're taking a lot of the learnings from that. But TypeScript is going to follow the same the same implementation pattern that Python followed. We're going to make sure it's semantically and syntactically normal. And what this means is, when you take Algorand TypeScript, you should be able to pop it into Node.js, and it will run inside that context. So it's going to mean that not only the 8 million Python developers, but also, I don't know actually the number, however many TypeScript developers there are, will be able to join the party. Also this year, we're bringing line-by-line debugging and unit testing for both Python and TypeScript. Now, this is a huge thing. Right now, even when you're in Python, you're trying to debug, you can't go line by line, right? You can't step into and step over things. Soon, you'll be able to step into functions, step over functions, and line-by-line debug, set breakpoints, all the things you're used to when you're using regular development environments in a non-blockchain context. Okay, I also tweeted about LoRa. LoRa is going to change the way we develop apps on Algorand. And so we're bringing a local experience to the development flow for developers on Algorand. There's 3 things I want to talk about. The first is that we have a completely redesigned, from the ground up, local explorer that is lightning fast. You click, you're straight into it. And this local explorer will essentially be looking into it can look into mainnet and testnet too, but it looks into a sandbox to let you see your transactions. We have a transaction visualization tool, which is going to graphically map out the flow of transactions, app calls, mints, payments. You'll be able to see all of the detail of your transactions as your contract flows and walk through them in a very sequenced and structured way. It's colorful, it's interactive, and it's visual. And it's going to make a whole new dimension for Algorand. When you're developing on it, you're going to be able to reach out and touch your code. And then finally, we're bringing local compilation. I don't know how many of you are aware, but when you're running AlgoKit, one of the things that's running in the background in the Docker engine is a copy of AlgoD. A stripped-down copy of AlgoD, the node, but you still have to send the Teal to Algorand's node in order to compile it into AVM bytecode. Well, no longer. You're now going to be able to compile locally. And you might think, well, is that much of a benefit? Well, there's 2 things that this allows. Number 1, no web calls when you're compiling. I mean, GCC doesn't have a web call when you're compiling C into machine code. But secondly, it lets us do things like REPLs, right? So as you type a line of code, it's able to instantly compile and give you feedback. You know, when you're typing, when you're writing code in TypeScript in Node, you get that instant feedback. And so we want developers to know they've made a mistake the second they hit a key, not when they finish the line. Finally, just one other thing I want to talk about on the holistic tool suite. We've got a bunch of exciting things, from interoperability to a bunch of libraries for dealing with smart contracts. But something that we don't talk about enough in our ecosystem is reacting to on-chain events. On Ethereum, whenever you build apps, one of the things you've got to do is be able to watch the chain for what's happening, be able to react when a contract makes a change. Right now, with Algorand, you've got to run an indexer. I'm sure many of you are running them in your backend. If you're not running an indexer, you've got to scrape the chain. It's a pain in the ass. We're going to bring a solution, it's actually already implemented, that lets you subscribe to a whole bunch of events on the chain in an extremely lightweight way. So you can declaratively state what you want to subscribe to, and just by running an AlgoD node, you'll get like a pub sub model where it will notify you as soon as these things happen. This is going to dramatically reduce the back-end execution costs, and it's going to make reacting to on-chain events easier than it is even in Ethereum. Cool. Finally, for 2025, our focus is going to be around enhancing, as we always focus on, I suppose, the security and decentralization of the chain. So, the threat of quantum computing to elliptic curve cryptography is real, of course. You know, I was looking at the current state of the art in terms of quantum computers. The threat that quantum computers bring to elliptic curves and to RSA is that they can run in a very efficient way an algorithm called Shor's algorithm, which essentially allows the quantum computer to quickly solve the elliptic curve discrete log. This is to find where on the elliptic curve your public key is and reverse it into your private key. And so this would allow people to spend your funds. Not good. The current state of the art in terms of quantum computers is around 1,000 qubits. Okay? The thing is, though, those quantum computers, they, when you're running Shor's algorithm, you need to do so using error-correcting qubits. These are kind of logical qubits. So you need a whole bunch of these regular qubits to make a single logical qubit. So we are a little way off a practical attack on elliptic curves or on RSA. But we want to be ready. We don't want to be reactive to this as people's accounts get drained. So Apple added post-quantum primitives to iMessage this year. And if you read their blog post, they'll talk about how there's a ton of extra data. They have to ratchet the keys, and they're sending a lot of data over the wire. But they're willing to do it, and they're willing to put the engineering effort in. Google added it to Chrome. They added Kyber to Chrome, right? That's another lattice-based key encapsulation mechanism. They've added this to their products. They're not bloating these products out for no reason. It's because that they understand that there's a real threat there, and they take it serious from an engineering point of view. And so do we. With the advent of Falcon, which is fast Fourier lattice-based SIGs over ntrue, we secured the history of the chain against quantum attacks. And this means all the blocks up to the last 12 minutes ago are secure against an attack from a quantum machine. But in 2025, we're going to be focused on research into a post-quantum verifiable random function, because the VRF itself that we talk about and are proud about is actually using elliptic curves. It's not safe against a quantum attack. And also, we need a post-quantum signature scheme for transactions, because our signature scheme that we use also needs to be upgraded in order to be quantum secure. So that's it. I think the story here is AlgoKit 3 is going to give a developer experience which is going to be world-class, certainly industry-leading. We're focused on post-quantum. We're driving towards decentralization with peer-to-peer and with consensus incentives. You're going to be able to reach out and touch your code in a visual way with LoRa. And finally, our R&D department are doing some very cool things. So that's it for me. Thank you very much.